While I was getting dressed, I was just thanking God for how far He has brought me. I was thinking about a sermon about Tamar that this guy preached years ago. And I was just really thanking God that I'm no longer her. If you don't know, Tamar was David's daughter. She was a princess. She lived in the palace. She didn't have a care in the world. She was happy. But lurking in the shadows was her half-brother, Amnon. So Amnon wanted her. He desired her. So he faked like he was sick. He faked an illness to lure her into his bedchamber. And Tamar, being the loving, caring, supportive sister that she was, she went, not thinking that her brother would harm her. As the story goes, he assaulted her, he raped her, and although what he did to her was horrible, she pleaded with him to marry her, to make it right so that she would not feel that shame. But Amnon, after he was done with her, after he got what he wanted, he discarded her. He basically told his guards to come and throw her out. So she ran to her father, David, in hopes that he would help her. He would punish Amnon for the terrible thing that he had done to her. But her father did nothing. He did absolutely nothing. Her other brother, Absalom, was enraged. 2 years later, he ended up having Amnon killed, but this did not satisfy Tamar. The Bible says that she lived in her brother's house. She lived in Absalom's house as a desolate woman. So because of what was done to her, she was broken. I looked up the term desolate, and it basically means joyless and grieving. So she grieved. She grieved the fact that she would never marry, that she would never have children. And this left her alone, shut up in her brother Absalom's house for the rest of her life. Can you imagine the strength, the determination that it took to realize what had happened to you at the hands of your own brother and still try to come back from that, still try to put those pieces together? And that's the part that resonates with me. Being the supportive, caring, nurturing, ride or die type, that'll get you in trouble. Tamar tried to fix that thing. She tried to make it right. She was like, hey, you did this thing to me and it was bad, but if you married me, then that would fix everything. Everything would be okay. Because, during those times, women had to be virgins before they would be given to marriage, especially with her being a princess. She couldn't marry below her station. But Amnon said no. It wasn't what he wanted. He got what he wanted and he was done with her. He threw her out like the trash. So never been through anything like that, never been physically assaulted or anything like that, but I did find myself at one point just being the Joan of Arc, just trying to save the day, trying to save everybody's day, trying to put stuff back together, trying to fix people that were broken and that had nothing to give to me, that didn't want to give anything to me, not what I wanted anyway. And those type situations, I'm no longer there, but praise be to God, I wanted to share in hopes that it may help the next person. So many times we stay past what I refer to as the deal-breaking point. We stay past that point of this thing is done, this thing is over. And I think sometimes we go into these situations, these relationships, not establishing our deal breakers, not establishing our boundaries. We think, okay, if I stay a little bit longer, if I try a little bit harder, if I give a little bit more, if I show up when that person needs me, then everything is going to be okay. It'll all work out for me in the end. But once you start giving and giving and giving and giving, two things are going to happen. That other person is going to respect and love and appreciate the fact that you're giving, or they're just going to continue to take from you. And more often than not, it's the latter. I don't know what it is, but there seems to be more people in the world that are out to take, out to see what they can get from you. And once they're done, once they have exhausted everything, then they just move on to the next person. And being a giver, a good person, a good woman, if you will, I used to find myself in these situations saying, hey, okay, I know I'm a good woman. I know eventually he's gonna see that I'm a good woman and he's gonna act right. Well, I'm gonna tell you that day does not come. That day does not come. So again, you have to go back and establish those boundaries. You have to know what you're going to do. And it's sad to say that, because you have to weed through so many to get to the right. You know, you have to, like they say, you have to go through so many bad apples to get to the one that is so sweet and so kind. You have to just go through so many. And like I said, I don't know what it is. All I can do is just thank God that he brought me through, that I finally started to see. And it didn't take that many. It was only two. It was two. One tried to help you out, but when I pulled out of his driveway, I said this will be the last time. Because one thing about it, I'm going to be supportive. I know who I am, you know, as far as that is concerned. However, once I am done, I am done. Don't even think about coming back. The next one, because you were in the church, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, he needs me to be supportive. He needs me to help. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He was actually worse than the one before. At least the other one, you know, he had PTSD. So, I mean, hey, that was kind of an excuse. But anyway, I'm going to tell you, I can look back on it and laugh now. But back then, all I was thinking about was, I'm a pretty lady. I'm supportive. You know, you can't get more faithful than me. You can't get more loyal than me. But hey, some guys, that's who they look for, because they know they can try to manipulate you. So don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Like I said, it took me two. And then I started to realize, people really don't care that you're a good person. They do not care that you're a good person. As far as what they can get from you, that's as far as they care that you're a good person. So you have to see that thing coming, and you have to chop it off at the knees. That's what you have to do. That's what I had to learn how to do. The fact of the matter is that some people are just narcissistic. You try to talk to them about whatever it is, and they don't want to hear it. It's not them, it's you. Some people are just literally out to get what they can get, truth be told. And then some people are they're just broken. Whatever happened when they were growing up, you know, they haven't dealt with it. So they hook up with people like us, who are good people, who are, you know, naturally nurturing and caring and encouraging, which is not, you know, within itself a bad thing. But the thing is, we don't date those people. We help them as much as we can, or we point them to help. That is what we do, because all dating them does is draw you in deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you feel guilty about trying to get out, because the person is so broken. So you're Miss Fix It. You're Mr. Fix It. You know, you got your screwdriver and your nails and your hammer, and you're trying to put them back together. Maybe they're not ready to be put back together, but they suck the life and the energy out of you. And if you're not careful, then you will end up desolate. You will end up with no joy, no peace, and you will end up grieving grieving the life that you can have, but you don't know how to get out. You don't know how to get out. So a lot of times we get into these situations because, number one, we don't want to feel like a failure. So we stay. We stay in these situations because we've been in them for so long, and in our minds, it's the only track that we know. It's like a record. You put the record on the turntable, right? The record has grooves. So when you start playing the record, it's gonna play the same old song. It's gonna play that same old song. The same thing that you've always done gets you the same thing that you've always gotten. You know that it's not going anywhere. We choose to stay because leaving would be failure, because we see it as a loss of years, a loss of time, a loss of energy. We don't want to fail. We want to keep thinking that if I stay a little bit longer, if I give that person a little bit more of what they say that they're needing from me, mind you, you're not getting anything in return. You're just giving and giving and giving. And all the time you're being depleted, but you don't want to fail. So you're just thinking, okay, sooner or later, the bell is going to ring and it's going to be me. It's going to be my time. I'm going to be on Facebook saying, I said yes, and flashing your pretty ring. But 5 years, 6 years, 7, 10 years, that time never comes. So what you have to do is you have to break that record. You have to break it, and you have to buy a new one. And buying a new one starts with what? Changing your mind. The only way you're going to get anything different is to change the way that you think about yourself and about the people that come into your life. If the deal is broken, then you walk away. You don't try to renegotiate. There is no negotiation for some things. You just have to be strong enough to walk away. Let's not forget loneliness. Loneliness is that true three-headed monster. The one that will give you nightmares at night. It will have you making decisions that you will most definitely regret. It'll have you sending text messages that you don't need to send. It will have you answering text messages that you don't need to answer. What's waiting at the end of those text messages is not the love that you want. It is tragedy. It will drive you deeper and deeper and deeper into despair, and you will end up in desolation. That's what loneliness will do for you. When Tamar was running around that palace trying to find somebody that was going to help her after what her brother did, she ran to her father. No doubt there were other guards there. No doubt there were other, they were probably priests, and I know that there was at least 100 people in that palace. Nobody helped her. In her loneliness, she sank into desolation. In her loneliness, she sank into desolation. In the darkness, in a lonely room in her brother's house. That is what loneliness will do for you if you allow your mind to stay there. So it's time for a change. We're not going to be fearful of failure anymore. We're not going to care what society thinks. And we're not going to subscribe to being lonely. Let's think about Peter walking on the water. Although the sea was tumultuous, he was fine because he kept his eyes on Jesus. But the minute he decided to look to the left, look to the right, he started to sink. He started to become fearful. He was probably worried about what the other disciples were thinking. He was probably feeling alone because he stopped looking at Jesus. We cannot take our eyes off of Jesus. We have to keep our minds focused on the Lord. There is a psychological term called neuroplasticity. Changing the song on our record player is just like changing your brain pathways. So the minute you start thinking about failure or being alone or caring what someone else thinks, or even looking at somebody else and wishing that you had what they had, you have to start rewiring your brain pathways to start thinking something different. What does success look like for you as a person? What does it look like right now, today? Because that's all you have. Only you can determine that. You have to change that old way of thinking. You have to change the you that is going to stay there regardless. The you that is going to stay regardless of if you're being fulfilled or not. You have to stop thinking the way that you've always thought. And that could be difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. You really have to put in the work to do that. But according to psychologists, and according to me, because I've done it, the more you tell yourself a thing over and over and over and over again, the more your brain will believe it. And that is the truth. I don't care if it sounds like hocus pocus. I don't care if it sounds like, what do they call that stuff? Manifestation or whatever. I don't care what. It is the truth. And the word tells you to think on things that are good. Think good about yourself. Think great things about yourself. As a man thinketh, so is he. So if you're thinking, I'm a loser, I don't deserve anything better than this, I'm always going to be lonely for the rest of my life, then that is exactly what you're going to get. Because it's all a mindset. So when you're riding in your car, when you're sitting in your home, don't be playing those sappy love songs, because all that's going to do is make you think or reinforce the fact that there's no one there. So why put yourself in that situation? And replace that with something upbeat, something uplifting, whether it's gospel music, whether it's spiritual, whether it's meditation. Replace it with something else that is going to make you feel good about yourself, that is going to help you focus your attention back on God, because He has created us to be wonderful. He has created us to be beautiful and to have our minds set on the things that He wants for us, the things that He wants us to do, our purpose for Him. So as long as we're focused on that, the word says that all this other stuff is going to come to you. And that's Matthew 6. But as long as you're focused on it, you're ruminating over it, you're just driving yourself deeper and deeper and deeper into desolation, because right now it's not there. And the more you think about it not being there, the sadder you're going to become. So why go there? Why even let your mind go there? Go somewhere else. Create new pathways. Start thinking of yourself as a different person than the person that lets somebody treat them as a doormat. That's not what you want to think. Don't think about yourself that way, because God didn't create you that way. God didn't. And I know sometimes we grow up with these thoughts, or we saw maybe our mom or our dad get treated a certain way. But that does not mean that has to continue for us. Whatever the situation is, you can change it if you change the way that you think. And God has given us the power. We have the power inside of us to change anything, any situation that deals with us. Now, you can't go out there trying to change other people. You just can't do that. Now, we're going to try these boots right here. You just can't do that. You can't be out there trying to change nobody else. And like we talked about earlier, that's when we start getting in trouble. You know, when we try to change, we try to give them another chance, and this will work out in the end. And maybe it will, but that doesn't mean that you have to sit there and take nonsense, because that more often than not is going to change that person's view of you. And even though they may want to get better, they know what you're about. They know what they can get from you. So most people are just going to keep taking. I don't know why that's, that's a rule of the universe. So we have to adjust. We have to live like that's how it is. And we have to act accordingly to protect ourselves, us good folk. That's what we have to do. So change your songs, change your playlists. Don't be listening to the Secret Garden. Don't be listening to that. Don't be listening to Keith Sweat. Make it last forever. It's not lasting. It's been 10 years. It's not lasting. Just let it go. Let it go. It's not going to last forever. Just let it go. You have to be able to let these things go, and God will give you the strength. Whenever that thought comes into your head, you just replace it with something else. If the enemy tells you you're lonely, you say, I'm not lonely because God will never leave me. And you just keep telling yourself that. Nobody has to know. That's the good thing about it. Nobody has to know that you have this new record playing in your head. Nobody has to know. Only you know. Only God knows. And He'll give you a little bit extra strength. He will give you a little, you know what? He'll give you a little bit extra strength when you start relying on Him. I'm telling y'all, I'm a witness to this. I'm a witness to this. And I just be so happy and just carefree, just whatever, because I trust God. I know that He's going to make all things work together for my good. And when I stopped, listen, when I just said, you know what, God, I'm messing up. I think I even said a bad word. Evidently, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So you know what? I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm just trying this on. I'm going to leave it up to you. This looks snug. I'm going to leave it up to you. And I'm going to pray. You know what I want. You know what I need. You know what's best for me. So I'm going to leave it up to you. And you have to be comfortable, not being lonely, but being content where you are. And there's a difference in that. You have to be content in whatever state God puts you in, because if you're trusting Him, and He hasn't sent you him or her yet, then you rush out and try to do something outside of His will, and it blows up, it's messed up, it's just a bunch of junk, and you end up right back where you were. But if you just wait, and if you're content, I think this jacket may be not content. But if you just wait on Him, then He will send you, He will give you the desires of your heart. I'm telling y'all, I'm a living witness. I don't have to do nothing. I didn't have to do nothing. Just happened. Stop focusing on it. God already knows. He already knows what's going on up here in this little mind of ours. He already knows. So just let Him handle it. And when it comes, you just tell the Lord thank you. And you just keep it moving. And do the best you can every day to fight those thoughts. Because even when He does send you somebody, the thoughts sometimes still come up. That you're imposter syndrome. You're not good enough. So it's like the enemy, he just be trying to get you any way he can. But when he says, oh, you're not good enough, you say, yes, I am good enough, because God says so. I am wonderfully made. And so are you. Until next time.